I knew something was off the second Brandon snapped the folder shut. He didn't look at me. No warning, no buildup. Just a tight clap of paper. Then his voice cut through the boardroom like a knife. Effective immediately, Martin Reed is no longer with Apex Nova. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. I was halfway through taking notes, pen still in my hand, when the words actually landed. My name, fired. In front of a table full of people I'd worked with for years. My name is Martin Reed. I'm 42 years old. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, 7 years. I gave them 7 years of my life. I wrote the damn system this company is built on. The infrastructure, the architecture, the whole foundation, mine. I bled for this place. And this little corporate stiff just tosses me like a stapler that stopped working. Quick note before we go further. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. No eye contact, no explanation. Just Brandon Hale, the new CEO with a fake smile and a hedge fund attitude, announcing my execution like a memo item. His hair didn't even move when he said it. Silence settled over the table like a fog. Cheryl from Ops blinked twice. Harris looked at me like I'd just died in front of him. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and looked right at Brandon. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. "Thank you," I said, clear and sharp. That did it. A few heads snapped toward me, not in support, in confusion. Like, why isn't he yelling? Why isn't he fighting? Because I don't hand over my dignity just because someone forgets what I built. I walked out. No folder, no box of desk junk, just me and my name. That name they'd just dragged through the mud without blinking. The elevator ride down was too quiet. I could hear the hum of the cables. My throat felt dry. My hands? Cold. I kept them in my pockets so no one would see them shake. The walk to my car was the longest 10 minutes of my life. I don't even remember opening the door, just sitting down and staring at the wheel like it had answers. They stripped me down in front of everyone, humiliated me, betrayed me. But here's what Brandon didn't know. I still held the license. And that system, that wasn't his to bury. I sat in the driver's seat with my hands still buried in my pockets. Phone buzzed in the cup holder, again and again and again. I finally looked. 12 new messages, all from my team. "Hey Martin, what happened? Do we pause the sprint or keep going?" Nobody's saying anything. Brandon hasn't even acknowledged the platform exists. What do we do now? One said nothing but had 7 question marks. I stared at the screen until it blurred. I should have said something yesterday. Not to Brandon, to them. To the ones who'd stayed up all night rewriting back-end code with me. The ones who trusted me. My silence didn't feel calm now. It felt like surrender. I drove home without turning the radio on. Raleigh traffic didn't hit me. I didn't even remember making turns. My apartment was dark when I stepped in. Blinds still drawn, mail still piled by the door. I dropped my bag by the wall and sat on the floor like I was waiting for something to wake me up. I didn't eat. Just opened the closet, dragged out the old bins I hadn't touched since the Ironhold days. Laptops, printouts, folders full of signed agreements and dusty NDA paperwork with bad logos on the headers. My living room turned into a paper graveyard. I sat in the middle of it all like a man who'd buried his own name. 3 hours passed, or maybe 6. Could have been the whole night. At one point, I found a coffee-stained mock-up from year 2, hand-labeled Phase 1, Kill Switch Protocol. I used to be proud of that stuff. Now I felt like an idiot. But beneath the shame, a sharp edge of clarity started cutting through. Had I been outplayed? Brandon didn't need to understand the system. He just needed to replace me fast enough that no one asked questions. Flashy demos, some fresh consultants, a LinkedIn announcement. That's how easy it is to erase a name from history. I leaned back against the couch and closed my eyes. All I could hear was the fan on my laptop, whirring like it knew I was falling apart. And then, my phone lit up again. Jason R. I hadn't heard that name in a while. Jason was an intern 3 summers ago. Bright kid, good instincts. His message was short. Do they even know who holds the base license? I read it twice, then again. My stomach dropped, but not from fear. I sat straight up, grabbed the nearest folder, and started flipping. Jason wasn't guessing. He remembered. I owned that license. I structured the transfer during the budget freeze when legal didn't want to risk internal conflict. Ironhold Systems was just a shell back then, a stopgap move. But the clause was buried deep, buried in legal, signed by the board, and triggered the moment they ended oversight. I hadn't lost everything, not yet. I pushed the folders aside, stood up, and grabbed a fresh notebook. I wrote 3 words on the first page: find the clause. Then I turned my phone back over and texted Jason back. I'm on it. I didn't sleep, just kept tearing through bins like a man digging himself out of a casket. The papers were all over the place. Versions of the original architecture doc, system flowcharts, termination clauses from old vendor contracts, licensing drafts with half-signed sticky notes still hanging off them. Jason's text had lit a fire in my chest. Now, I needed proof. Legal, binding, airtight. I knew what I was looking for. The memo from late third quarter, 2 years ago. Apex was bleeding out that quarter. Budget freeze hit hard. They agreed, as long as we had a clean reversion clause. I flipped another binder open, and there it was. A red tab labeled IP/Ironhold 2023. My hands were shaking. I pulled the packet out, slid the pages free, and scanned line by line. In there, paragraph 6, bottom of the page. In the event Apex Nova terminates all oversight of or contractual obligation to the original architect, intellectual property rights shall revert in full to Ironhold Systems, effective immediately. That was it. That was the kill switch. They didn't just fire me. They detonated their own foundation. I stood up, let the papers fall back to the floor. My mouth was dry, but I didn't care. I paced the room once, twice, then stopped in front of the whiteboard I hadn't touched in months. I wiped it clean with the side of my arm and wrote 1 word across the top in bold black marker. Triggered. That clause wasn't theoretical. It was active the moment Brandon said my name and shut that folder in front of everyone. And from the look on his smug face, I'd bet my last paycheck he never even read the memo. I walked to the window, stared out at the Raleigh skyline, and let it hit me all at once. They didn't own the system. I did. Everything, the back-end engine, the adaptive sync tech, the distributed failover code, all of it was tied to that base license. Without it, the product was dead weight. I should have felt joy. I should have felt rage. But standing there in the dark, surrounded by old paperwork and broken trust, I felt something else. Clarity. They thought I was gone. Just another engineer shoved out of the way to make room for some shiny new CTO and a rebrand. They thought they could erase me with 1 meeting. I picked up the contract, tucked it into a plastic sleeve, and slid it into my laptop bag. Then I poured myself the worst cup of instant coffee I'd had in 5 years and sat down at the kitchen table. I wasn't going to run to lawyers yet. I wasn't going to warn anyone. I was going to wait, watch. And when they realized what they'd done, they'd have no choice but to come knocking. This wasn't over. It hadn't even started. I didn't go anywhere that day. I didn't need to. I brewed fresh coffee this time, not the instant junk, and set my laptop on the kitchen counter. 1 window open to Apex Nova's live event stream. Another open to Slack. 3rd one monitoring system, heartbeat pings. The demo started exactly at 10. Stage lights, branded banners, oversized LED screen behind the podium. Rows of suits from out of town, probably half of them VCs Apex had been courting for months. Brandon Hale walked out like a damn game show host, all smiles and polished teeth. He was wearing one of those slim-cut blue suits that screams, "I think I'm in control." He opened with a joke, some line about innovation. The crowd gave him polite laughter, the kind you give someone because they have your money in their hands. Behind him, the system dashboard popped up, real-time usage metrics, performance curves, pretty UI overlays we spent years perfecting. I recognized the layout. Every bit of it was built on my original framework. 10 minutes in, the clicks started to stall. He was walking through a live demo of the user interface, clicking through features like he was unveiling the future of enterprise infrastructure. Then he hit the data sync module. Click. Nothing. Click again. And then it hit. The screen behind him froze. Bright red banner across the top. License authorization expired. My Slack lit up instantly. What the hell just happened? Did we push a bad build? Is that from prod or the sandbox? The room on the stream went dead silent. Brandon looked back at the screen like it had betrayed him. He laughed, too loud, and turned to the crowd. Just a little hiccup. Someone probably forgot to update a token. He clicked again, still frozen. He walked over to the keyboard on stage. I watched his fingers twitch slightly as he typed something. The banner didn't budge. 2 minutes passed, 3. The feed kept running. Then I heard her voice. Director of Ops, center row. Wait, we've lost access to the whole platform? You could feel the shift. Half the audience leaned in. A few started murmuring. One guy in the front pulled out his phone and started typing like crazy. Brandon turned toward her, forced a smile. We're just throttled temporarily. We'll reboot from the backup node. I leaned back in my chair and scrolled Slack. The engineers were in meltdown mode. No rollback plan. No idea what had happened. One of the devs DM'd me. Did you see that? Was that you? I didn't answer. Instead, I muted the video stream, sipped my coffee, and watched Brandon's mask start to crack in real time. He kept repeating the same sentence to the audience. We're looking into it now. Just a small back-end issue. No one believed him. 15 minutes passed, still locked out. This wasn't chaos. This was the plan. Quiet, simple, and clean. They terminated my oversight. They triggered the clause. The platform they were bragging about didn't belong to them anymore. The next morning, I was halfway through my eggs when the phone rang. Unknown number, Raleigh area code. I already knew who it was. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Then I picked up and kept my voice flat. This is Martin. Hi, Martin. This is Kelly from Apex Nova, HR. How are you doing today? She stretched the word "hi" like we were old friends, like she hadn't just watched the company implode on live video, while the product I built locked them out cold. I didn't say anything. Well, listen, she said, tone flipping fast into something urgent. I know things have been a bit chaotic lately, and we just wanted to reach out personally. There's been a lot of confusion after the demo, and Brandon thought it'd be a good idea for someone from People Ops to check in with you directly. I smiled without moving. So, I'm just calling to ask, would you be open to a conversation about returning? Not full-time, necessarily, just consulting. Restoring continuity. There it was, restoring continuity, not fixing their screw-up, not admitting they fired the wrong person. Just vague HR talk to make me feel like I was part of the solution again. I see, I said. We'd, of course, be prepared to offer a generous rate, short-term, no commitments. Brandon mentioned you might be the only person who can reinitialize the license integrations without downtime. I leaned on the counter and looked out the window. The sky was clean. Birds were on the power line. Calm, no panic here. Let me ask you something, I said. Why now? She hesitated. Well, after the unexpected system lockout, No? I mean, why are you calling me now? Not 9 days ago. Not the day you fired me in front of the entire boardroom without explanation. She cleared her throat. This isn't about blame. We're trying to move forward. I almost laughed. Not about blame, but they couldn't even open their own software. Martin, I think we can find a number that makes this worth your while. That was the moment it hit me. They still thought this was about money. They didn't get it. You don't have enough money to buy back the truth, I said. Silence on her end. I gave it a beat, then hung up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't vent. I didn't even finish my eggs. I just turned off my phone and sat in the quiet. That was the moment the weight finally shifted. Not a scream, not a wind parade, just the soft click of power changing hands. And they felt it. Every last one of them. 2 hours after I hung up on HR, the email came through. Subject line, coffee? It was from Chris Dalton. We worked together 5 years back. Apex Nova's early grind years. Smart guy, no ego. One of the few who saw the system for what it was, not just what it could be sold for. Last I heard, he jumped ship to Velocity Core, Apex's biggest competitor. His message was short. Hey Martin, I've been following things. I'm in town. You free to grab coffee tomorrow? I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen and let the possibilities roll. Then I typed one word, sure. We met at a quiet cafe off Glenwood. No logos, no crowds. He was already at the table when I walked in. Jeans, jacket, no tie. Looked comfortable. I wasn't. He stood up, shook my hand. "You look calm," he said. "Working on it." We ordered. Small talk died fast. He reached into his bag and slid a manila folder across the table. "I figured I'd skip the dance," he said. "This is what we know." I opened it. Right on top, a clean printed copy of the clause, my clause, highlighted in yellow with Velocity Core's legal letterhead clipped to the side. "You've been watching?" "Since the announcement," Chris said. We knew Brandon didn't read half the paperwork he signed. Once the system tanked mid-demo, we connected the dots. I nodded slowly. "And now what?" He leaned in. "Now we make a deal." He didn't blink, didn't fumble. "Velocity wants the platform," he said. "But we don't just want the code. We want you, partner level, long-term, chief advisory architect. You keep the rights, we buy the license. You help us integrate. On your terms." I didn't say anything. Just sat back and watched him say everything Brandon never did. "You wrote this thing. You designed it to last." Apex was just the first carrier I closed the folder, but kept my hand on it. My head was buzzing, but not from pressure, from clarity. "You're not going to play middleman for Apex?" I asked. He smirked. "We don't work through dying companies." The air got quiet between us. I didn't say yes, didn't say no, but for the first time in weeks, someone looked me in the eye and said the truth out loud. No spin, no HR script, no fake warmth. Just the facts. I built something real, and it was never theirs to break. I stood up first. Chris didn't follow, just nodded like he knew I needed to walk out alone. Outside, the wind hit different. I crossed the street, folder in hand, and stopped at the corner. The board still believed they could bury this with silence. They thought PR would fix it. They had no idea. And now, I had fire in my hand. By the time I made it home, Brandon's face was already back in the news. He was standing in front of a row of screens at HQ, smiling like a man who hadn't just been exposed. The headline below him read, "Apex Nova CEO, systems fully restored after minor glitch." He really used the word minor. He said the issue had been blown out of proportion and that their engineering team had resolved the problem within hours. He thanked the investors for their patience, praised the team's resilience, then gave a smug little smirk to the camera like he'd personally saved the company. The media ran with it. Tech blogs called him a steady hand during turbulence. I watched the whole thing from my kitchen, arms crossed, jaw tight. It was all fake. The fix wasn't a fix. It was a patch job on a product he no longer legally owned. And 22 hours later, the lie ripped wide open. At 2:14 p.m., the entire platform went dark. No access, no UI, no backend, no customer logins, no heartbeat pings, nothing. This time, the system didn't just show an expiration, it shut down completely. I got a text from someone on the infrastructure team. "Did you nuke it?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. By 4 p.m., leaked emails hit Twitter, screenshots of internal threads between Brandon and the DevOps lead. "Use the demo sandbox for live mode. Nobody outside will notice. Just make it look good for 2 days. We'll get access back by then." He faked the fix. Used a demo environment to pretend the real system was back online. Didn't even tell the engineers until after the press conference. At 6:30 p.m., the board held an emergency meeting. Someone on the inside, probably one of the junior VPs with a grudge, sent me the audio. Brandon opened the call calm as ever, talking about reputation management, legal review, next steps. But about 10 minutes in, one of the directors snapped, a woman with a clipped voice and zero patience. "You misled all of us." No yelling, no drama, just cold, hard words. Brandon tried to pivot, but the momentum was gone. Another voice jumped in. Male, older, sounded pissed. "Do you even know who owns the damn software? Or were you too busy planning media angles?" The recording cut off not long after that. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat. I just sat back in my chair, arms crossed behind my head, and let the silence settle in. Let them talk. Let them panic. Let them turn on each other. I didn't need to say a word. They were finally hearing the truth, and I wasn't the one delivering it. The invite hit my inbox just before midnight. Subject: Special Executive Session. Urgent Licensing Review. Location: Boardroom Level 5. A time, 9 a.m., sharp. No apology, no explanation. Just a calendar block and a quiet, desperate undertone that said everything. I showed up 5 minutes early, no badge, no escort. Security buzzed me in without making eye contact. I walked the same halls they once made me wait in after hours with cold coffee and broken build logs. This time, nobody asked me to fix anything. The boardroom door was open. 12 chairs filled, all eyes turning as I stepped in. Brandon was already there, pale, stiff, trying to act like he still ran the room. His jaw clenched when he saw me. He didn't nod, didn't speak. I sat across from him. My hands were steady. The chairman, some gray-haired finance guy who'd never written a line of code in his life, cleared his throat. "Martin, thank you for coming. We know the last few weeks have been difficult." I said nothing. Just folded my hands on the table. He continued. "Let's be clear. Apex is in a critical state. Our infrastructure's down, investor trust is shaken, and operational continuity depends on your cooperation. So, the question is simple. What would it take to restore access?" I pulled a folder from my bag, slid it across the table, and opened it. Inside, the original clause, signed, time-stamped, notarized, a printed record of the licensing chain through Ironhold Systems. I looked at Brandon when I said it. "I'm not here to come back." His face twitched. First time I'd seen him show real emotion since the day he fired me. "I'm here to sell." The room froze. No one spoke. No one breathed. I pushed the folder to the center of the table. "This proves the rights reverted to Ironhold Systems the moment Brandon fired me." The silence broke with a cough. Then the rustling of suits shifting in their chairs. One of the directors finally leaned forward. "You're saying we don't own the core product?" "I'm saying you never did," I replied. "You licensed it from me." "And now that license is gone," Brandon opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The chairman closed the folder slowly, eyes dark. "How much?" I stood up. "That depends who's buying." No one followed me out of the room. They didn't need to. They already knew. Brandon had made the worst mistake of his career. He fired the one person with the keys to the engine, then watched the car stall in front of the world. And now they were out of gas, out of time, and finally out of excuses. 3 days later, I walked into Velocity Core's headquarters with the original clause in my hand and one condition in my head. The reception area was sharp, glass walls, natural wood, clean lines. But it didn't try to impress. That's why I liked it. Chris met me in the lobby. No handshakes this time. Just a nod and, "You ready?" "I've been ready." We took the elevator to the top floor. Their legal team was already seated, papers laid out, pens lined up. No small talk. They knew what this was. 1.1 billion. Not for the code, not for the brand, for the license, the foundation of the entire architecture. But before I signed, I looked at Chris. "One thing," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "I want it in writing. Advisory role, permanent. Chief advisory architect. Not a figurehead, not for press, and not for show. Title's fine," he said, no hesitation. "Equity too, if you want it." "It's not about equity," he nodded. "Then what's it about?" "Control." I didn't care about being the face of anything. I wasn't there for headlines. I just wanted one thing, to make sure no one twisted what I built into something it was never meant to be. I built the system for efficiency, not exploitation. Scalability, not surveillance. I had seen how Apex used shortcuts to chase quarterly wins. I wasn't letting that happen again. Chris slid the amended contract across the table. "Sign it when you're ready." I read every word. Twice. Then I picked up the pen and signed. The ink had barely dried when the story hit the wires. Velocity Core acquires platform rights in $1.1 billion deal. Former Apex engineer named Chief Advisory Architect Apex stock. Plummets 42% in pre-market sell-off. I closed my laptop and didn't bother checking my inbox. I already knew what would be waiting. Reporters, lawyers, ex-colleagues, suddenly remembering how much they valued my leadership. Didn't matter. I walked out of the building just before noon. Sun high, cool breeze. Nothing loud or cinematic, just clean air and quiet. I didn't feel proud, not even triumphant. I felt settled. Everything Apex tried to bury, I brought back on my own terms. Not for revenge, not for attention, for the work, the right way. 12 days later, Apex Nova was dust. Stock dropped below $8 a share. 2 board members resigned. 3 major partners issued breach notices and pulled out. The lawsuits came in waves: IP fraud, investor deception, breach of fiduciary duty. Every single one named Brandon Hale. I didn't have to do a thing. The system stayed locked. Velocity held the license, and the market finally saw the truth. Apex never owned what they sold. Brandon tried to hold on, issued a letter to shareholders claiming strategic pivots and unforeseen legal ambiguity. But nobody bought it, not after the leaked emails, not after the demo crash, not after the board turned on him. When the resignation came, it was quiet, a line buried in a Friday evening press release. Effective immediately, Brandon Hale has stepped down from his role as CEO of Apex Nova. 3 days later, he stood in front of reporters in a gray suit that looked a size too big, eyes sunken, voice hoarse, hands gripping the podium like it was the only thing holding him upright. They peppered him with questions. Did you know about the clause? Why didn't you verify the licensing chain? Did you fire Martin Reed out of spite? He didn't answer most of them, just kept swallowing hard and saying, no comment. I watched the conference from backstage. Velocity sent me to represent the new architecture team, a symbolic gesture, nothing more. I was only supposed to be there for the cameras, to put a face to the deal. When they called my name, I stepped out. Calm, no smile, no swagger. Flashbulbs popped. Reporters shouted over each other. Martin, did you plan this from the start? Martin, do you have anything to say to Brandon Hale? I looked out at the sea of microphones, the lights, the chaos. Then I said 2 words, thank you, and walked off stage. It wasn't a gesture of kindness. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. He handed me the very thing he tried to take, power. And the moment he tried to erase me, he made me undeniable. I didn't rebuild my career. I rebuilt my name. On my terms, not theirs, never theirs.